Paul opened the valve on the canister and pulled the Velcro strap tight to seal the bag around his head. He struggled to see the photograph of his son on his phone. Tears ran down his eyes as a last-minute twinge of changing his mind failed to stop him. Paul was anxious, but he wasn't panicked. He breathed a little faster than normal, accelerating the process. Everything he read told him he'd pass out peacefully in a few minutes as his body unknowingly replaced oxygen with helium. As the gas kept flowing, he would die peacefully via inert gas asphyxiation. There would be no suffering, no fear, no panic, no sense of suffocation and struggling before unconsciousness, known as the hypercapnic alarm response. Simply peace. 5 minutes had passed. Paul looked at his watch and loosened the Velcro strap to remove the bag from his sweating head. This seemed like the perfect way to end it all. A lot less messy than an overdose, and no chance of becoming worse due to a botched gunshot to the skull. This was indeed the perfect suicide method, he thought to himself. Paul was a retired software engineer. He had made millions participating in the creation of some of the most popular business software ever written. The definition of meticulous. As a result of an early career embarrassment, Paul practiced everything methodically and in several iterations. He'd proceed with 4 more tests before the final launch, as he called it, testing everything from the pressure of the gas to the purity of the helium. There would be no mistakes. I met Paul about a year before he left us. He was a client of mine in a service business. A tall, lanky, boisterous fellow who had a presence indicating he was someone at some point. He had visible discoloration on his face and hands. I never asked him what they were, but they were obviously signs of a medical condition. Apparently, it was more serious than I could have known at the time. Paul would drive an hour to visit my business because of reviews he had found on the internet. He'd take the long journey and come into my store and pull up a chair. Paul would allow several clients to interrupt him, insisting they go first, as he patiently waited in the chair. People would feel a little strange, noticing Paul grinning as he watched every move and absorbed every word. Normally, I'd say something, but I didn't care. I was at the end of my journey in a business and was biding my time until I had my own exit strategy. Paul would continue his conversation when the lobby emptied, sometimes 30 to 45 minutes later. At times, I wondered if Paul was lonely and simply wanted someone to talk to. His wife had left him several years prior, and he lived alone. I had many clients who were in a similar situation, but none who stayed as long as Paul. He would ask me stories about my business. How long had I been doing this? Was I happy? What were my aspirations? He came up with some good ideas at times, things I had already done and others I might have tried if my business wasn't already heading down the path of obsolescence. I didn't want to tell him I knew it was almost over, because I might lose him as a client. Although he was awkward and my other customers thought him strange, I wasn't ready to do that. Although Paul would complain about my prices being too high and always arrange some sort of discount for himself, he would consistently leave me with a $100 tip after almost every chat. Said if he didn't give it to me, his ungrateful bastard son would end up wasting it on something stupid. Apparently he had a habit going to gentlemen's clubs and spending money on alcohol and drugs. I felt like an online whore sometimes, but whatever. Money is money. If I were a hot-looking chick, I'd probably do Twitch streaming too. I figure over the years, he probably donated a few $1,000s to my cause. And yes, IRS agent, I paid taxes on that. I'm honest to a fault. Stupid, I know, but civilization was built on trust, and I'd like to see trust stick around a bit longer. It was the extraneous conversations that kept me from telling Paul to beat it. Those conversations that only an older, wiser, experienced person could host. Someone who has had successes and failures. Someone who has embraced successful opportunities and learned from failed ones, and let other potential winners slip away. At the time, I was about half his age and thought I had seen my share of wins and losses, but mine were nothing compared to his. Yes, eventually, Paul did take his own life. But you know what? He did it on his terms, without pain, without suffering. Paul had terminal cancer, and even as advanced as we think medicine is today, it's still rudimentary at best. Doctors try to beat cancer by poisoning your system. They burn what they can, and they cut out whatever they think you won't need. Any way you think about it, it's definitely not pleasant. Probably a little more like torture. I've personally seen 3 friends go through this, and all 3 wish they did not. Paul was ready, and he left this world better than when he found it. He donated what was left of his fortune to several small nonprofits that help the homeless, hungry, and even our 4-footed friends. His son received his 10% to avoid probate, but it was the most difficult 10%. Although sometimes it doesn't seem that way, I suppose we all get what we deserve. So here are my 4 most important takeaways from my meetings with Paul. I call them lessons from Paul's life. 1. Wanting something bad enough is never enough. Action is the only thing separating you from the potential of achieving your end goal. You may never get there, but the journey itself is a worthwhile experience. The mistakes are invaluable. The failures are monumentally educational, and you'll never know if you never try. Those who do succeed eventually. 2. Money isn't everything. Sure, it does help. And yes, it can buy some semblance of happiness. Ask any family who's run into some bad luck and is staring at an eviction notice. The stress the lack of money brings is easily outweighed by the lack of stress having money provides. But having money won't find you a loving partner or a happy career. Those who chase money dedicate their lives to making more money for someone else when you think about it. And most never really find the happiness they set out to find. By the time they realize this, their faces have aged and their kids have grown. And they've already missed out on most of the best times because they were chasing that money. And clock hands don't move backwards. 3. Success is bullshit. We arbitrarily define success by social status. Many people fake it, and they fake it well. You can be $1 million or even $1 billion in debt and still roll like what they call a baller. If you tell a good enough tale, people will believe you. But real success is happiness. It's succeeding in finding a home, small or big, expensive or not, that makes you happy when you arrive there. It's being happy getting in the car you drive. I have 3 cars, but my favorite is my 22-year-old ragtop Jeep. No doors, open air. Success is not caring what people think about you, what you have, who you are, or what you wear. Peer approval is worthless, unless you're asking them for money. And true success is finding a small group of people who you take a bullet for. People who will be there for you no matter what. When you're happy, when you're sad, when you're broke, when you fail, and even when you call them an asshole. Those people are rare. If you found 1 or even 2, you're already ahead of 99% of the human race. I have 2 people I can truly call friend. And to me, that's real success. And 4, everything is temporary. Wealthy people spend their entire lives worrying they'll end up like you. That's why they don't tip well. They don't share. They don't spend frivolously. They don't want to be like you. It's quite a heavy task when you think about it. Carrying all that fear for years. Constantly looking over your shoulder and wondering who or what will try to take your money away from you. Lawsuits, scam artists, fake loves, unscrupulous investment advisors, and illegitimate vendors. If you realize you come into this world without a single penny, and you will leave without your clothing, well, that kind of puts things into perspective, doesn't it? Money, fame, or success cannot buy you happiness or even an eternal life. There are simply too many extraneous forces at play that you cannot control. Crime, war, terrorism, disease, accidents, climate change, meteor strikes, natural disasters. If you relinquish your attachment to anything you didn't bring with you from your mother's womb, only then you'll be free. Now that's not to say it doesn't hurt to put a few dollars aside for a rainy day. But don't think you can protect it all, because you just can't. No one can. A reliable friend or partner is worth more than all the money